My name is Marin Caldwell, and I design cities for people who think they own the sky. I've built skylines, transit systems, and green corridors that carry more humanity than my own family ever showed me. But this morning, sitting at my mother's table, I realized I was never the architect they were, and their masterpiece was control. Every great project starts with trust, my mother said, sliding a wrapped box toward my son. He ripped it open and froze at the sight of a gray commercial mop set. Tyler will run this family one day, she added, her smile thin as wire. Your kids need to learn their place early. Don't. Dylan grinned while his son launched a $2,000 drone across the room. Make sure you shine my shoes before you go. Marin, he said. My mother laughed softly. The kind of laugh that erases your protest before it forms. I looked at her and replied, funny thing about cleaning it teaches you what's worth keeping. The room went still, and for the first time, my silence felt heavier than their approval. Don't ruin Christmas, my mother whispered, pretending grace while holding contempt like perfume. I said nothing, just picked up the mop box, set it on the counter, and met her eyes. No scene, I said, just clarity. Then I walked out, leaving their laughter echoing like a hollow structure waiting to collapse. Outside, the wind cut through my coat, the kind that scrapes away hesitation. My phone buzzed with a server notification. Access revoked, project ownership transferred. I didn't panic, I smiled. That line of code I buried years ago was still there. Dormant but alive. My family thought they'd stolen my legacy. They didn't know I had built a back door and the key was still mine. The next morning, the company portal refused to open, flashing an error that read, unauthorized access. I tried again, but the files were gone. Every blueprint, every environmental model stripped from my account. Dylan's name had replaced mine in the project directory like it had always belonged there. Then his message arrived casual, smug, deliberate. Relax. Sis, he wrote, you still get to be part of it. Just quietly. Artis. I called my father, hoping reason still lived somewhere under the Caldwell name. Dad. Dylan stole my work, I said, keeping my voice steady. He sighed as if I'd just interrupted something trivial. He didn't steal. Marin. He's presenting it under the family's brand. Don't embarrass us. My throat tightened. But not from shock, just confirmation. He'd always chosen the legacy over the truth. I stared at the frozen screen, the cursor blinking like a silent accusation. My designs, worth millions, now sat under someone else's name. And my family called it teamwork. The irony was almost poetic. I'd built the foundation they stood on. But somehow, I was still the trespasser. Embarrass us? I whispered to no one. I'm the only one holding this family together. Yet the truth pressed heavier with each breath they didn't want me to hold it together. They wanted me invisible, essential only in silence. And for the first time, I didn't feel afraid of being erased. I felt curious how it would feel when they were. I met with Renee Lawson that afternoon, the only attorney I trusted to speak the truth without dressing it in sympathy. She scanned the documents I'd salvaged and said, you have no case unless there's proof something embedded. Verifiable. Time-stamped. I leaned back and answered. There is. They just don't know it yet. Her eyes lifted. Measuring me like I was a fuse she couldn't decide was already lit. 3 years ago, when I began building the Green Horizon models, I embedded a hidden sequence inside the environmental code, an eco-tag designed to replicate the project's digital DNA. You could delete files, copy blueprints, or change author tags, but that code would still pulse beneath the data. Invisible, yet alive. It wasn't just a watermark. It was a silent witness, one that could only be triggered through the network I built myself. I never meant it as revenge. I meant it as insurance against exactly this moment. Renee exhaled slowly. You understand what happens if you activate it publicly, she said. You'll burn every bridge in that company. I nodded. Then they'll finally see I was the one holding it up. Her silence was permission disguised as warning. I went home and opened my old laptop, the one untouched by company servers. The script was still there. Waiting. Loyal. A single line of code separated justice from destruction. All I needed was access to their internal network, the same one Dylan would use during the presentation. He'd think he was unveiling the city of the future. And maybe he would be. Just not the one he planned to build. I didn't want chaos. I wanted clarity. And sometimes, the cleanest way to rebuild is to let the wrong foundation collapse first. When I tried to log in the next day, the system rejected my credentials with the same finality as a locked vault. I called IT. And a voice I didn't recognize answered. Flat and scripted. Per directive from management. Your access was terminated last night. I asked who signed it, though I already knew. Dylan Caldwell, he said, and hung up before I could reply. I drove straight to my father's office, where the air always smelled like approval and old money. You really think letting him steal my work helps the company? I asked, watching him pretend to read a report. He didn't look up. He's a Caldwell. The clients trust that name. You should be proud, I said quietly. I built that name. You just stamped it on blueprints I drew. His eyes flickered. But only for a second. He folded his hands, the same way he did when closing deals that weren't his to make. You've always been too emotional. Marin. That's why Dylan leads. I almost laughed. Too emotional to lead. Or too quiet to threaten. His silence was my answer. Every wall in that office was built to remind me who it belonged to. When I left, I didn't feel defeated. Losing access wasn't the problem, it was proof. They'd finally taken the last thing tying me to them, and that meant everything I did next wouldn't be sabotage. It would be liberation disguised as consequence. I called Evan Brooks that evening, knowing he'd answer before the second ring. You once said you owed me a favor, I told him, keeping my tone even. You saved my job when Caldwell tried to bury us. He replied, Tell me what you need. I said, away in quiet, clean, and invisible. His pause lasted just long enough to sound like trust. Evan worked for Nova Urban Systems, Caldwell's biggest rival, which meant he understood the politics of theft dressed as innovation. I explained the eco-tag, the script buried beneath the models, and the presentation Dylan was about to give. If you can get me within range of their network, I said, I can make the system expose him. Evan didn't hesitate. You'll need a dual handshake, something that syncs to the Wi-Fi and confirms you're local. His calmness reminded me why I'd trusted him years ago. By midnight, he sent the prototype, a small application hidden in a conference app, disguised as a viewer's feedback tool. It'll activate the watermark when your phone connects to their projector, he said. I told him, You're giving me more than a way in, you're giving me proof. He laughed softly. You always had the proof, Marin. You just needed the right audience. I spent the rest of the night studying the sequence, line by line. The code pulsed like a heartbeat on the screen. Tomorrow, it would speak louder than every apology I'd never received. And it would speak in my name. At the entrance of the City Expo, the security guard scanned my badge and frowned. Your credentials are invalid, he said. I replied, That's impossible. I'm on the project team. His tone didn't shift. Terminated with cause. You're on the do not admit list. I looked past him at the glass doors gleaming like judgment. Check again, I said. I belong in that room. He shrugged. Not according to your company. From the corner of my eye, I saw Dylan arrive with my parents. Laughing as if the world had always belonged to them, he spotted me near the security desk and smiled through the glass. Go home. Marin, he mouthed, drawing the words out slow. Deliberate. I didn't flinch. I am home, I whispered back. Though he couldn't hear me. My mother turned away as if ignoring me could erase me one more time. The guard shifted impatiently. Ma'am, I'll have to ask you to step aside. I kept my eyes on Dylan's retreating figure and said evenly, I just need to speak with my team. He replied. They've revoked your clearance. You don't have a team. His words landed like truth trying too hard to hurt. I stepped back. Not defeated, but calculating. Then Evan appeared. Badge in hand. Voice steady. She's my external consultant, he told the guard. She's with me. The man hesitated, then nodded. I didn't thank Evan. I didn't need to. The moment the scanner beeped green, I knew the walls they built to keep me out had just opened themselves from the inside. The presentation hall was a cathedral of glass and money. Every seat filled with investors waiting for a show. Dylan stood center stage, smiling at the LED screen behind him like a preacher before a digital altar. This project, he announced, represents the future of sustainable urban growth. A vision I've cultivated for 3 years. I connected to the Wi-Fi through the app Evan built, watching the signal blink green. Yes, I whispered. Show them what 3 years really looks like. Oh. Dylan gestured toward the screen as the 3D model spun behind him. Green Horizon isn't just architecture, it's philosophy, he said. His tone rehearsed. His confidence sterile. My mother sat in the front row, glowing with pride she never offered me. We believe innovation begins with legacy, Dylan continued. I said, softly to myself, and ends with truth. One tap on my phone, and the handshake was complete. The screen flickered once, twice, then flushed to crimson. A low murmur rolled through the room as the Caldwell logo dissolved into a flashing message. Original design by Marin Caldwell. Copyright infringement detected. Dylan froze, his smile cracking like glass. This is a glitch, he stammered. I stood up from the back row and said clearly, it's not a glitch. It's the author reclaiming her work. Investors leaned forward, whispering like witnesses at a public execution. Councilman Miles turned to Dylan. Is this true? Dylan tried to laugh, but it came out like choking. She's lying. She planted this, I replied. Then show them the original files. Unless you deleted those too. Silence fell heavy. The screen split again, revealing a time-stamped video log of my design process. Frame by frame. Every change. Every iteration. I said. All mine. My father stood slowly, color draining from his face. My mother reached for Dylan's arm, but he pulled away, as if her touch confirmed his guilt. No one clapped. No one spoke. I walked toward the exit as Dylan's voice cracked behind me, begging the tech crew to shut it down. I didn't turn. The truth was already louder than I'd ever been allowed to be. And in that silence, dense, complete. An absolute, I heard something I hadn't in years. My name. Finally standing on its own. My father caught up to me in the parking garage, his voice echoing like an old sermon. You just destroyed the family name, he said. I turned to face him, the sound of distant engines filling the pause. No, I replied. I separated it from mine. His jaw tightened. You think you won? I took out a $50,000 loan against your condo using your power of attorney. The money's gone. You're broke. ADO. For a second, I almost admired the cruelty of his precision. You forged my authorization, I said, my voice steady. I used what you signed years ago. He snapped. It's perfectly legal. You built your success off our name. Marin, now you can see how it feels when it's taken from you. I looked at him and said, You didn't take it from me. You paid for it. His eyes flickered with confusion. The kind that comes just before realization. I pulled up the account on my phone. The same one he believed he'd drained. That joint account you wired the loan into. I said quietly. I moved the funds this morning. You just sent me your last asset. His face collapsed under the weight of silence. Pride curdling into panic. You wouldn't dare, he whispered. I already did, I said. He stepped back, searching for the man he'd been 30 minutes ago and not finding him. You call this justice? He asked. I met his eyes one last time. No, I said. This is balance. 2022. A week later, the headlines wrote the ending for me. Caldwell Developments was under investigation for intellectual property fraud, and the city council had frozen their contracts until further notice. Renee called that morning, her tone halfway between amusement and disbelief. They want to settle, she said. I answered. Tell them to plant more trees. It was the closest thing to forgiveness I could offer. I signed the papers for my new firm that afternoon, Caldwell & Blue. The name wasn't for legacy, it was for clarity. Evan sent a short message. You built something honest this time. I replied. That was always the plan. The silence that followed didn't feel empty anymore. Walking through the park I once designed only on screens. I felt the kind of stillness that doesn't ask for applause. My family's empire had collapsed quietly. Like a building condemned long before the demolition notice arrived. Justice hadn't been loud, it had been methodical. I realized I didn't win by exposing them. I won by stepping outside their architecture. Some families passed down houses. Mine passed down lessons mostly about what never to build again. And for the first time, I let the blueprints burn. Thank you for staying until the end of my story. If you've ever been underestimated, betrayed, or written out of your own work, remember, silence isn't surrender. It's strategy. Subscribe and share this story if it spoke to you. Justice doesn't need noise, only precision. And sometimes, perfect timing.